Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're setting aside, it's an account from a young adult who's basically asking, judge me, after something super private got it, well, very publicly exposed.
It's a fascinating little case study, actually. This one narrative, it brings up these huge universal questions about privacy.
Right.
Where is that line? Especially when you're technically an adult, but maybe living under someone else's roof or on their property.
Exactly. So our mission, for you listening, is to unpack this. Is the poster's, lack of shame justified? And does it even matter against the real-world judgment they got?
Yeah, it's all about boundary lines, isn't it? Where personal stuff ends and family or public scrutiny kicks in. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's map out the scene. What actually happened here?
Yeah.
So the basic setup, we've got two young people, an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Right.
And they're on the property owned by the 19-year-old's parents.
Important detail, the ownership.
Definitely. And their initial goal was pretty innocent, right? They were supposed to be cleaning a shed in the backyard.
Yeah, it's starting off with a domestic chore, which kind of makes the quick turn more, well, understandable, maybe.
Yeah. Predictable, perhaps.
Yeah.
The cloning project didn't last long.
No, it got derailed pretty fast. Decided the shed had other uses.
And here's a detail the poster makes sure to include, which feels really crucial to the fallout.
What's that?
They say the activity only lasted for 2 minutes before they were interrupted.
2 minutes? Wow.
I mean, talk about efficiency beating catastrophe, right? The timing is just terrible.
It really ramps up the drama, doesn't it? Like 0 to 60 in terms of awkwardness before they can even, finish or get squared away.
Yeah. Bang.
Interruption.
So who was the interrupter?
The source is a little vague here. Describes him as a man, maybe a neighbor, maybe someone who doesn't live there.
Okay. So ambiguous presence.
Yeah. And he just walks into the shed.
Yeah.
Catches them. Right there.
Oof. Okay. That's got enough. But it gets worse, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. It escalates immediately. This guy doesn't just, back out awkwardly and pretend he saw nothing.
No.
No. He apparently went straight to the boyfriend's parents and, in the poster's words, told on us.
Wow. Straight to tattling on adults.
Right. There's no hesitation mentioned. It's not like a slow burn reveal. It's direct reporting to the authority figures on the property.
So you go from, two consenting adults.
Legal adults.
Right, legal adults,
Yeah.
doing something private, presumably on private property, to being interrupted and then immediately exposed and facing, parental discipline. All because some third party decided to step in.
Yeah, someone who decided they had the moral high ground or just the right to intervene.
It sets up the whole conflict perfectly, doesn't it? Young adults asserting autonomy versus this external judgment, and it all hangs on that one question.
Was the shed actually private?
Yeah.
Or private enough?
Exact.
Let's dig into their side of it. Okay, so we have the scene, awkward, escalated quickly. Now, how does the poster defend themselves? Because they claim zero shame, which is kind of bold.
It is bold, and their defense is interesting, definitely coming from a place of perceived autonomy. It basically rests on two main pillars, their age and the location.
Okay, let's take age first.
They really hammer this point home. We're 18 and 19. They explicitly say, adults doing adult things, and they contrast that directly with what they think would be shameful, like if they were two 15, 16-year-olds.
Okay, so the logic is we're legal adults, therefore the kind of shame you might attach to, teenage sneaking around just doesn't apply here.
Pretty much. Maturity, in their view, cancels out the judgment. But, and this is a big but, they might be adults, legally speaking, but they were doing these adult things on property that belongs to other adults.
The boyfriend's parent. Right. Doesn't that immediately kind of complicate the whole we're adults, leave us alone argument? Property rights often come with house rules, spoken or unspoken.
That's the real tension, isn't it? Legal adulthood versus, situational context. You might be 18, but if you're in your parents' house, or in this case, their shed.
Your autonomy might be conditional. There are inevitable strings attached to using someone else's space.
Okay, so that's the age part. What about the location defense? They seem pretty strong on that.
Yeah, they're adamant. They argue they were in a private place doing our own thing. They even sort of concede it was uncomfortable for the guy who walked in, but they insist he had no right, morally, socially, to step in or, crucially, to report them.
And they draw a clear line, right, between public and private space.
Very clear. They explicitly say they would get the judgment if they'd been, say, in a public park.
Okay.
But because it was a shed in the yard, they considered it private, an extension of the home, shielded.
Which brings us to this idea you mentioned, the semi-private space.
Exactly. Because a shed in a backyard, it's not quite the same as, say, a locked bedroom inside the main house, is it?
No, probably not.
It's often accessible. Family members might go in there, people doing yard work, maybe even that neighbor borrowing a tool, depending on the setup.
So the poster kind of assumed that just being on the property made the shed as private as the house itself.
It seems like it. They equated the property line with a guarantee of total privacy. But you're right, property lines don't automatically mean maximum privacy for every square inch.
Right. You need more than just geography.
You need an assumption of security. Is the door locked? Are the windows covered? Is it a space people generally access without knocking? If not,
Then the assumption of absolute privacy might be misplaced.
definitely misplaced. They confuse being on private land with being in a secured private space. They had the idea of discretion, maybe, but they didn't actually ensure it with, practical security.
So a question for you listening then. Did they lean too hard on feeling morally right because they're adults and kind of ignore the practical fact that they were using a potentially common area without locking the door, essentially?
And that lack of practical security, that's what leads us straight into the next part, the judgments they faced from outside. Because not everyone agreed with their private space argument.
No, definitely not. And the first hit came surprisingly close to home, right?
Yeah, maybe the most stinging judgment. The poster's own friend, after hearing the story, apparently said the poster was the problem.
Ouch. From a friend?
Yeah. That's a huge counter-narrative right there.
Hmm.
It shifts the whole focus from, legal rights or privacy theory to just judgment, propriety.
So the friend is basically saying, look, age and location aside, you used bad judgment. You put yourself in a situation where this could happen.
Exactly. It
Oh.
introduces that idea of expected shame,
Yeah.
or at least expected discretion. Society, even your friends, kind of expect you to be smarter about keeping private things private.
Okay, so that's the friend. Then there's the interrupter himself, the man who showed up randomly and then got mad. What was his deal, do we think?
Well, we can only speculate, but there are a few possibilities for why he escalated, right?
What?
One, just basic shock and maybe moral outrage. He saw something he thought was wrong or indecent for that setting.
Okay, simple offense.
Two, maybe a sense of trespass. If he felt like he normally had access to that shed or yard area, maybe it's a shared path or he borrows tools, he might have been mad the space was occupied inappropriately.
Right, like his routine was disrupted.
Or three, maybe he saw himself as acting on behalf of the parents, like a sort of moral proxy, protecting their property, their household sanctity, even if it was just the shed.
Acting as like the neighborhood watch, but for morality.
Something like that, but whatever is his motive. Walking in, lingering, and then immediately reporting it to the parents of adults.
It feels pretty extreme and very intrusive no matter what they were doing in there.
Totally. It suggests he didn't just see it as awkward, but as a genuine transgression that needed immediate intervention and sort of punishment via the parents.
Now, this whole story was posted online asking for judgment, so naturally people pushed back, right? Questioned if it was even real.
Yeah, skepticism is inevitable online. And the poster had to add some updates to defend the story's truthfulness, which actually gives us a bit more insight.
How so?
Well, first, they confirmed the real-world consequences. They mentioned they couldn't go back to the boyfriend's place later that day to, ironically, finish cleaning the shed.
Okay. So it grounded the story. Like, no, this actually happened and it messed up our plans.
Exactly. It shows the fallout was tangible. And second, they directly address a likely accusation that maybe this was some kind of, exhibitionist fantasy.
Right. Like maybe they wanted to be caught.
But the poster pushes back hard on that. They explicitly state they don't want a 60-year-old man watching them. It clarifies the interruption was absolutely unwanted, totally non-consensual from their perspective.
Okay. So that reinforces their core feeling. They were trying for privacy, even if they failed at the execution.
Yes. Their frustration is about the violation, the seeing, and the telling, not about the act itself. The message is clearly, we had a right to do this privately. You had no right to watch or report.
Which brings us back to that central puzzle for you listening. The poster feels completely justified, zero shame, based on their age and their definition of privacy. Yet basically everyone else involved, the friend, the neighbor, impliedly the parents, seems to think they messed up through poor judgment or lack of awareness.
So if we pull all this together, all these different views, the core tension is really clear, isn't it?
Yeah, What is it, fundamentally?
It's that classic clash between the individual's right to, bodily autonomy and doing what they want.
Especially as legal adults.
Right. Versus the kind of unspoken but very real social expectation that you'll be discreet, that you'll show propriety, especially when you're operating within someone else's space or property.
So the big insight here, maybe, is that private space isn't just about drawing lines on a map.
Not at all. It seemed to rely way more on things like assumed security.
Like a locked door.
Yeah, or assumed boundaries, assumed inaccessibility. If you don't take steps to actually secure that space, you might end up paying what we could call like a discretion tax.
Discretion tax. I like that. What do you mean?
It's the social penalty you pay for, basically, not reading the room, for failing to meet that minimum standard of keeping private things properly private in a shared or semi-shared environment.
So you might feel you're legally in the clear, morally fine.
Totally justified internally. Like the poster, who achieved not feeling shame, that's an internal win for them.
But you still get hit with the external consequences.
Exactly. The parental involvement, the friend's judgment, not being able to go back to the house. Those things are real-world impacts, and arguably way more disruptive than just feeling a bit guilty internally.
Which really underlines why looking at these specific cases is so useful, right? Knowing your rights is one thing.
But knowing how those rights bump up against real-world social expectations and practicalities, that's crucial knowledge too.
Yeah. They won the argument in their own head about being adults.
But they kind of lost the practical argument about using a semi-private space discreetly and securely.
Well, thank you for walking us through this. Incredibly specific and really quite awkward scenario.
Yeah. It wasn't exactly straightforward, was it?
No. But it really does highlight how tricky navigating these personal boundaries can be, especially in, today's world.
Absolutely. It's messy stuff, but the details really tell a story.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with one last thing to chew on. It builds on that neighbor's actions.
Okay.
We talked about how the sexual nature of the activity probably ramped up the judgment and the reaction.
Certainly, yeah.
But imagine this. What if that couple had been doing something else private but totally non-sexual in that shed? Let's say they were, I don't know, changing out of muddy clothes after gardening. Or maybe having a really intense, private, emotional conversation about something difficult, like family problems.
Okay.
Would that neighbor, that man, still have felt he had the right to just walk in, linger, maybe listen, and then go report the content of that private moment to the parents?
That's a really good question.
Does the nature of the private activity change the rules of intrusion and reporting? Or was his action fundamentally about crossing a boundary, regardless of what was happening behind it?
Yeah, that gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Was his intervention about policing the space or policing the specific act?
Exactly. That difference between just trespass and, moral enforcement, that feels like the core tension in this whole source. Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Until next time, keep digging into those details.